Meeting come to order. Any special intentions? Councilwoman DeFrancis, you have the floor.
Thank you. We've all heard and witnessed the tragedy in Florida. We need to keep all of those children and parents and all the people affected by that tragedy in our prayers. It breaks my heart to think of those children. Having taught that age group especially, it touches me deeply. But also the first responders. Think of all those firemen and policemen who were on the scenes who had to see that devastation and the heartbreak it involves. So if we could keep all of them in our prayers, I think that prayers make a difference, and I believe in prayers. So if you could do that, it would be appreciated. Thank you.
Any other special intentions? Councilman Moreno, please lead us in the prayer.
Let us bow our heads and remember that we are in the presence of the Lord. Loving God, you are the author and sustainer of our lives. You know the anguish of the sorrowful. You are attentive to the prayers of the brokenhearted. Hear your people who cry out to you in their need. Strengthen their hope in your lasting goodness. We pray today for those who have died due to the senseless gun violence in our schools. Draw them to yourself. Let your face shine upon them. May they be greeted with choirs of angels and experience your eternal peace and joy. Be near to all of those who have been touched by this violence, those who have been hurt, lost loved ones, or lost their sense of security. Be for them a steady comfort and a safe resting place. Soften the hearts and redirect the minds of those who would consider doing senseless violence to others. May hate be replaced with love, violence with peace, and darkness with your light. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Councilman Carroll, if you'd lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Good evening, council members. You have a quorum this evening. Councilwoman Hand is absent tonight. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes, the council meeting of February 8, 2018. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. We have none. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 2072-18, Mitchell Brothers and Sons Incorporated, doing business as Mitchell Brothers Amusements, to hold a public gathering on March 1st through the 11th, 2018, from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. on weekdays and 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. on weekends for the purpose of a community carnival at 1401 West Esplanade Avenue, the Esplanade Mall in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 4 is correspondence, reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Mr. Mayor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council Chairman. Unfortunately, here in the city of Kenner, besides what Councilman DeFrancis talked about in Florida, we had another issue that happened on early Monday morning. The Kenner High School took on a lot of fire. There was a catastrophe for everyone throughout the city of Kenner. If you didn't attend there, you probably know someone or at least have a relative that attended there. That has put us in a situation where we have to make some decisions as a city, and I've talked to most of you all about it if you attended the agenda meetings of where we can go. As y'all know, that the two options are to stabilize or to deconstruct, not demolish. Some people have had fun with using the word demolish on this issue. I will not use the word demolish. If we don't stabilize the building, we will have to deconstruct it for some type of memorial somewhere else. If we stabilize the building, it will cost, we've reached out to professionals and specialists, it would cost around $475,000. Now, the only good news of that, because there's never good news when you talk about that much of taxpayer money, the good news would be is that we're looking to see if we can take the $319 that we have for the roof that was coming, we had a roof grant, thanks to Mr. Mike Ince, we were getting ready to put a roof on it, we might better take that 319 and use it toward that. That's the first option, is stabilizing. The second option would be, as other specialists have talked to us about, is to actually deconstruct it. And when I say deconstruct, I'd be more interested in keeping, I'm gonna call it the crest at the top, the ornamental flowers at the top of the building when you see the like border that goes around, and of course the part that says Kenner High School. So there's lots of things that we can save. Maybe we can do replica impressions of those if we can't save it, because time is of the essence. So as I look back and I talk about the things that we can look at, there is the urgent need to deconstruct. However, speaking with Mr. Joe Calderero this afternoon, I'll go to the other part of stabilizing. And if you would grant me the pleasure, I'm not a contractor. I don't pretend to be. Mr. Calderero is that. I'd like to yield some of my time in a few moments to Mr. Calderero to give you the part about, we know what we can do with deconstruct with another company, but if Mr. Calderero would, if y'all would give him some time to actually discuss the part about stabilizing. Now, when we stabilize, I'll say this. I'm gonna, if we choose to go that way in an emergency situation, we have possibly, and I'm gonna say it for the record one more time, $319,000 to do that if we're allowed to transfer that money from a new roof to stabilizing. So we're not gonna have the $475,000 to do that. And why would we stabilize it? For the history and for our constituents. We would work then with some developers or Mr. Calderero, or he would help us find more funding to put that building back into commerce, either as us being part of that or someone else being part of that. So that keeps leading, because some council members were in a meeting just, and this just happened before, after you, Maria, and Keith left my office. This just happened where there's that one more step, because if you go back, it sounded like before we were looking at deconstruction, but it's the two options still. But I want people to realize those are the options that are there, and we only have possibly the 319. If we don't get that permission to use the 319 for that, we're back in a situation where we have to look for deconstruction. I hope it wasn't too confusing. It's been very time-consuming this week, which we're glad to give that time to this building, but it has been very, very time-consuming to get to this part. Every day we let go by becomes one more issue. I do not want to lose the part that says Kenner High School. I mean, I would, even if we're going to stabilize it, if we go that route, I would still like to get an impression of that piece in case, God forbid, a wind comes by of, 60, 70 miles an hour and takes the building down and it's in pieces. I'm not going to let that happen. So I need to probably get an impression no matter what. If y'all are supportive of that, I would appreciate that. With that said, do you mind if I call up Mr. Calderero?
That's fine.
Mr. Calderero.
Hello. It's been a long time since I spoke here, and I think I know everybody. I think everybody knows me. I hate to tell you how long I have been in Kenner. Some people speak to me like they've been here 10 or 20 or 30 years, like it's forever, but I grew up on 11th and Clay Street, and I've been here all my life. My grandmother lived at 1504 4th Street, which is right behind Kenner School, and our other grandmother lived at 1812 Short Street. So I'm very familiar with Old Kenner. It's where I was born and raised. Ground conditions in Old Kenner, some of the foresight of your predecessors thought that North Kenner was the place to be, and my father used to say from Veterans Highway to the lake ought to be a game management area. And, I wound up building a subdivision back there, but we deal with ground conditions back there that are not as good as what you have in Kenner. So everything starts with a good foundation. That building is very sound. While I respect the engineers that looked at the building, their task was to deal with the risk. And from a risk standpoint of an engineer, what's easier, finding a way to fix it or tearing it down? Well, I went and looked at that building myself. I did some infrared scans. I've done some other compressive tests to it. If you take a look, I sent a couple of pictures to someone here that's maybe can put this on the screen, but if you went out, each of you, go out and take a look at the mortar joints. You're going to note that the mortar joint is not a typical 5/8 joint. It's a little bigger. And the reason it's bigger, that if you examine those joints, you'll see little pebbles in it, pebbles like you see in concrete. That mortar is what they call these days Type N, which is the strongest, Type M for Mary, strongest mortar possible. The compressive strength of that wall will likely exceed 5,000 PSI. From the simple test I've done, it will exceed that. So what about the risk? There is always a risk of a building falling down. The home you live in, as well as it's built, there's the risk of it burning down tonight. So what's happened out there, although a tragedy, may be of benefit to you. That fire consumed much of the interior space of that building that would have been demolished anyway. So you're a little bit ahead of the curve from the standpoint of resurrecting that building and putting it back into commerce. Do I think it should be dismantled? Absolutely not. It would be a terrible waste. Can it be preserved? Absolutely. I give you that guarantee. But time is of the essence. What I can't do is tell you exactly how much the cost of rehabilitating a building, because once you stabilize it, you need to look at the next steps of rehabilitating it to put it back in commerce. But I have ties to various different associations and group preservation societies that want buildings like that saved. And maybe this thing will turn into a blessing in disguise, because now that it's out there and everybody's heard about it, I'm getting a lot of calls, in fact, some of them from ex-mayors that are saying, Joe, you might be the guy to do this. We have a construction company that I've been the president of for 40 years. And while, I heard everybody's heard about performing arts and how much that costs, remember that things cost what they do because of the lack of planning, and for corrective measures you have to take. I think you do need to go in and spend the money to stabilize this building. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to assume the risk. Kenner risk ends when you award this to a contractor that will assume that risk, and that building is worthy of an emergency circumstance to do so. So it's a small job that some contractors might not want, but it's something, that's the kind of job that we specialize in. We have restored buildings like John L. Orry School, which was built in 1931 in LaPlace. Go take a look at it. It's almost the same kind of facade that this was, and it was just a shell of walls. We've done restoration at San Francisco. We've done evaluations at Almond Plantation. So we have a background in historic restoration, and I have a construction company that actually has employees. We don't subcontract everything. So we got bricklayers and concrete finishers and people that could actually do some of the structural work necessary. And we also have relationships with some of the best masonry contractors in this region. So, got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Mr. Colorado, Councilman Segur does have some questions, I believe.
I'll have a question for Joe, but then I wanted to question the mayor too after then. Joe, you say that, and I agree, I would much rather see it preserved. As a former student there, I really love the presentation of the front of the building and think it means a lot for Kenner to have that there. So that would be my choice too, is to leave it there. The shell wall, I've seen like you've done in other places where that can be preserved and then come in and build back the inside to make the building whole again. So are you saying that you think that just by supporting it right now, where it be with this funds that we hope we can transfer to it, can preserve it for a minimum amount of time to then come back with another plan to do the inside? Or is this something that you're saying that I know you said you have a company willing to do it. I'm not quite sure what that meant. You would
Well,
do
that
it with
means
the
you-
money we give you, or you do it on your own?
I need to take a look. I don't want to stand up here and misrepresent anything to anybody, but you don't have a lot of time to think about it.
Right.
So we'll get on top of coming up with pricing. But the amount of money that Kenner has, certainly the amount of money that somebody said this could be stabilized if you did it with somebody else, we believe, I'll give you a 90% yes, we could do it for that value. But the difference would be this: the stabilization that we would engage would be a stabilization with the idea of fixing it later. So even if you spent money now to stabilize the building, that's a word that I'm not sure what it means unless there's a lot of scope backing that up. What I'm saying to you in front of everybody is that the stabilization that I envision is a stabilization that would be left in place to keep that building structurally sound. So it's not just putting up temporary shoring, but it's actually with the idea of building some structural inclusions in that building that would keep it in place.
Okay, well then, I hope that between the administration and you, y'all can have more discussions and maybe come back to us with some better concrete information, so to speak, or more
No
information.
pun intended, right?
Yeah.
So
and,
one other thing too about what Ben said about the impressions of the building. One of the things that building has is some beautiful castings up there. Those castings, you notice, have cracks, but those cracks were likely there before, just not as pronounced because the heat causes it to expand. The reason you're seeing these contraction cracks that are different than a brick is because you got two dissimilar materials, but you also don't have expansion joints anywheres in that building as you see these days. Back in the day, they cast something, it went however long. So you're seeing the effects of not having expansion in those long castings. Can they be cast and saved and replicated? Absolutely. That's easy. It's probably the easiest part of the function. So, and I'm not trying to do a commercial right now, but if you want to see the kind of craftsmanship our people do, go take a look at the shop we have on Metairie Road and some of the carvings that are in there, some of the wood carvings that we've done by hand. This comes from old-time craftsmen that, quite frankly, the reason I don't have 400 employees anymore is because some of my people are dying, and the ones I have to replace them with, I don't want to use them. So this is going to take finesse and craftsmanship and somebody that understands how to take something apart and put it back in the condition it's in. And what I mean by that is certain areas of that building will have to be disassembled and fit back.
Thank you, Joe. And so, Mayor, the other comment I wanted to make was, if somehow this doesn't progress along in that direction, which, again, I know I'd love to see it, but if we had to perhaps get into a deconstruct, I would love to offer and see that perhaps buy a brick from the school be put out, because that's a good fundraiser for something else to lead toward rebuilding it. I know of all the students that went there, we all have our memories, and perhaps buying a brick for a fee would help, keep our memories there, but yet bring in some money to help fund some project there that can keep the memory going.
So yes, I've been working with former mayor, former parish councilman Louis Congemi. Him and I had talked about actually saving as many of those bricks from the facade that we can, and have people able to buy a brick, put their either relative's name on it or their name, but they're still here with us, and reconstruct that wall with that facade somewhere on City Hall property, or just store it till we're ready to do that somewhere throughout the City Hall, many properties, a park or whatever. So that, absolutely, that's a great idea. That's something we've already been talking about. I think that's something that we'd have to do if we go down that road. If we don't, and we do the stabilization, we could still probably save a few bricks somewhere, but see how we can actually do that to work with Mr. Calderera. No matter what we do, we have to do something quickly. So I'm gonna be in contact, either myself or Ms. Focia, Ms. Fortunata will be in touch with Joey Calderera all day tomorrow, determining what we're gonna do and try and get something done, probably not this weekend, but at least by Monday or Tuesday of next week. That's our goal.
Mike, that's actually a great idea to have people maybe donate some money for a brick and draw a mural of it, and draw a mural of that school with their name on it, where you get the money to build it back, not just to save a brick and have your name on it, but to actually build it back.
Sure, I mean,
a great
I
idea.
participated, in my role with the Boy Scouts of America, and that's one of the things that they do a lot of, is buy a brick to fund a new building project and raise money, and, it gives the person, either, in this case, it's a little bit different. In those cases, you just buy a brick, you put your name on it, they put it in the ground, but this is literally to get a brick that you can say this was part of the school that I went to. Thank you.
Councilman Reno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joe, thank you for coming tonight. In stabilizing the building, would you have to take those castings down, or you would stabilize what they have there without removing any of the facade?
Without a further review, I can't conclusively tell you that, but based on the preliminary review we've done right now, we would leave everything in place,
Intact?
intact.
And the cost,
Those castings, the way they are in place, it can be restored. That's just basically a plaster face that's popped off of them. It can be restored in place.
okay, and the cost to stabilize it, you believe would be about how much?
I'm thinking that, I'm working up the numbers, but the numbers I'm hearing that they have, I'm trying to do this as somewhat of a giving back to Kenner kind of thing, so I'm going to try to make this work out for the money you have.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
I'll clear that up. If we get the money, no offense, Mr. Calderaro, if we get the money where we can turn it around, it's 319. That's what we have. We have 319 to put into this building. I mean, there is no other funds that we would have. So I will work with Mr. Calderaro, and I'm sure he'll work with me to kind of like live within those means.
And what is the process to see if we can get that grant amended? Mike?
Mr. Mike?
Entz?
Yes, Mr. Mike, I'll call him up here. Mr. Mike Entz has been in contact with GOSEP. He's actually going a little bit further tomorrow because he's not getting a response. I'll let him take it from there.
All right.
Yes, so this is funding from FEMA through the Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant. So what we're going to do is, just as the mayor said, we're going to look to move this funding towards securing the outside of the structure as far as fencing goes, and stabilizing the facade and removing some of the debris that is in there. Luckily, within the original request, a lot of those components were already in there, so we're not really changing up much. So I think that leading into that, what we're doing right now is we're kind of rallying around our preservation organizations so that when we go before FEMA, it shows that it's even more of an emergency situation to request that funding. There may be some extra funding out there that we are going to absolutely request for. It's an 80-20 grant, so any kind of extended money that we get on top of it will cost more in the match agreement. But like I said, going back to the preservation organizations, all of them are very, very aware of this. We've gotten a ton of phone calls from all of them, whether it's the Preservation Resource Center, Louisiana Trust for Historic Preservation, Louisiana Landmark Society, which we have been renewed on the Louisiana Trust Historic Preservation's most endangered list of historic properties, and we will be on the most endangered list of the top 9 in the New Orleans region with the Louisiana Landmark Society. So all of those designations puts the building out there to show that it's historically significant to the region, not just New Orleans or Kenner, it's to everybody. That is a very historic building, one of 3 originally in Jefferson Parish, the only one left standing, even though burned out. But going back to it, a lot of those items are similar to what we were going to do anyways to stabilize the roof. Being that the roof's not there anymore, we can still use some of those components to request it, but it's just more sped up at this point.
So do we know the process? I mean, as far as a time frame, has this been done in other municipalities where something like this has happened? And like, do you know what the turnaround time to get an
Right.
answer to say we could use these funds or not?
Right, to be honest, a request like this is best done in person, instead of over the phone or through emails. So what we're trying to do is get an in-person meeting with FEMA and GOSEP at the same time so that we can show the significance of it. Unfortunately, this is not a new thing when it comes to historic buildings. They catch fire. We've seen the same thing happen with the Myrtle Banks building on O.C. Haley Boulevard, which is now a public market. You've seen it with a couple properties on Canal Street. So, this is not unique, but it is in our sense a little bit because we're using FEMA funding for the project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilwoman DeFrances, you have the floor.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the mayor's efforts to save portions of it. That would be lovely. But I will say that my heart is to try to do whatever we can to save the entire building. From the moment that I was on the council, and we put it on the National Historical Registry, I thought it was an absolutely wonderful thing to do. That is the heart of our old city. It is one of the most beautiful, I think it is the most beautiful building in Old Kenner and most of Kenner. And it would break my heart to see it torn down. And I've offered my services to the administration and Mr. Calderera too, if I can do anything or use any energy or any whatever effort I need to try to make it happen. I would be delighted to work with the administration, Mr. Calderera, or anyone else who wants to step forward and help us preserve the building and keep it as the historical building that it should be honored. It should be honored. It should be part of our history. And I believe in history. And so if we can do it, I would be delighted to help in any way possible. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. And next, we have Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Calderell, also as a South Kenner boy myself, who is a fifth generation in South Kenner. You and I obviously have the same sentiments and the same empathy for the area because we grew up there and all of our relatives. And the school itself is something that I never went to Kenner Junior High. I went to Our Lady Perpetual Help, but if my impression and the information that I've received in the years from my grandfather and my father and my brother who did go there, it was mixed emotion because, as you know, my grandfather and my father were not allowed to go to Kenner Junior High during that time. They couldn't go. They literally had to walk past the school to go somewhere else. So they have their own set of feelings about that, whereas my generation, who had an opportunity to go there, has their feelings about this. So sometimes there was a conflicting opinions about that. But I must say, since this tragedy has happened, even the individuals who had some emotional differences with not being able to go there all felt the empathy when they saw this building burning. It is part of their life living here in that area that they didn't want to see it go. And they felt that when they saw it on fire, even with all the reasons why they could not have the same feeling. So I think from Mr. Calderera's perspective, it is the perspective from many, many people, and we have noticed the number of people on the mail. We have noticed the number of people stopping on Jefferson Highway taking pictures. It is constantly going on. So anything that we can do to be able to support this in any genre, I think we should take the efforts to do that. And I'm sure it will be something that at the end of the day, we will hopefully make the right decisions to make sure this piece of history in the city of Kenner, no matter how it affected different people at a certain time, now everybody, in my opinion, is on the same page with it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And Councilman Segura.
I have a question for Mr. Hance this time.
Okay, Ms. Danks, if you will.
Talked about how this grant for the 391 was an 80-20. So if to go back, which was originally intended to redo the roof, the city had to put up some money, as I would understand. So if now, because there's no roof and we're just trying to stabilize the walls, and you're going to go see if we can repurpose that money to that, and Joe can perhaps keep that stabilization in that around the 391. How does that work with do we still have to be responsible to put up some money?
Yes, sir. So we going back to it, is a 80-20 match, so we're on the hook for 20%. Of course, if nothing moves forward, we won't put out that 20%, but
Again, but I don't mean to interrupt you, but remember, I'm saying the 20% was 20% above the 391?
So the total request was somewhere around 420. I can't remember the exact figures
Right.
off the top of my head, but what we were awarded, the federal share, was 319,000.
And presumably the cost to redo the roof was that plus 20%.
Correct.
Okay, so
You're
again,
right. Correct.
so if we're not replacing the roof now, we just want to use that money that we did get approval for shoring up the sides, and the cost can be kept to that amount. that's my question. What happens to that 20% match? Do we just get a blessing and say you didn't need to put it up?
Well, I mean, if we weren't awarded any extra money, it would stay at what our agreed upon match is if they allowed us to do the amendment of it. The good thing, like I said before, is a lot of the similar work involved in this was previously requested with the demo portion. I would like to add, though, you know, when we got the survey and planning grants from the National Trust, we definitely had the foresight to go in and catalog a lot of these fixtures, ornamental fixtures that are inside of the building. So I absolutely don't want to say this is in any way good, but you know, what was once in that building originally can be brought back from what we cataloged underneath those 2 grants. So it really just depends on, you know, going back to what Mr. Colorado said about how we build out to it for what the potential use is, so we have a plan forward. But I think that the position that we're in with all the local and state preservation programs on our team, so to speak, which we also should have the National Trust Community Investment Corporation on our side as well, which, you know, I don't want to ever say there's potential funding out there, but the National Trust Investment Corp has more funding now to use for facade improvements. So there's pots of money out there now that weren't out there before, but we're definitely in a good position to present a case to FEMA for this funding that was essentially low-hanging fruit from past years of pre-disaster mitigation funding that we can maybe request some more for since it is an emergency situation.
Okay, well, I was just trying to, hopefully that we can take that 391 and get it shored up. Thank you.
Councilman Klein.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, would be in favor of Joe stabilizing the building because I think that's important as an emergency, and I would be in favor of reconstruction, not deconstruction, Mr. Mayor. And I think uniformly the calls that I've gotten were in support of that building to try to preserve it as best and as fast as we can. So I, too, would be supporting that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, thank you for the presentation, and Mr. Colorado, thank you again for your presentation and hopefully for the future work that will be done for the building, of course. I think that's very important to do a lot what we just covered. If you will, you want to make another comment?
I just want to thank you very much, and I'm available all day tomorrow, except for first thing, my little daughter's having a little procedure done, but after that, I'm wide open all day. If you want to talk about some options about how to move on this, I'm ready to jump on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as you can see, it's very important to all of us up here, so this is it's big. Thank you again. Next, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. That will conclude the consent agenda this evening. I have a motion by Councilmember Wilmot, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise on the consent agenda tonight. Please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0 for your consent. Under the public appearance agenda tonight, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,326, an ordinance approving the lease of the existing building and improvement located on portions of Lot W3, Plot H, Kenner Orleans subdivision, Kenner Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, bearing a municipal address of 402 Williams Boulevard for the sum of $1,050 per month for a 12-month term. Mr. Chairman, I've received a request tonight for an indefinite deferral. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot for indefinite deferral. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0 to indefinitely defer. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. We have none. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution accepting the municipal water pollution prevention environmental audit report for the period of January 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2017, and to inform the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality that the following actions were taken and additional actions will be taken by the city of Kenner. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to be able to get the some information on exactly what are the additional actions that will be taken if we have someone here to address that today, to be able to give me information. If not, then, you know, should have called earlier about this. I can't wait till tomorrow to give it to me if there's nothing, and, you know, if you don't have anything prepared to be able to give to me, but I would like to know it by tomorrow, if you could forward it to my office.
In addition to what you see in the resolution, there's also, there's two more projects. There's the, we're going to be putting mechanical bar screens at the old Plant One site. The other project is, well, there's some work that's already started at the old Plant Two site, which you know, there's some repairs that are going on over there, and there's some more. There's also, is a lift station at 39th and Power that's going to get a substantial upgrade to help with the overflow situations over there. But that in addition to what you see here, where it's listed what's going on, is pretty much, that summarizes it.
And just for full clarity, obviously we have the information here. I think it helps sometime to be able to talk a little bit more to the public, to let them know who aren't privy to some of this information. So that is why I ask sometime to be able to put it out there so people can have a good feel for it, and possibly something may be asked additionally from one of us or someone in the audience. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And Councilwoman DeFrances.
I was just going to ask our Public Works Director to just give an explanation of why it's on the agenda. I think some people had questions about it. If you could just explain where the funding came from for all of these projects very quickly. You don't have to go into detail. We just want the public to know exactly why this is on the agenda and again, where the funding is coming.
Well, a lot of the money has come from the LDEQ loans. So
Exactly.
we're up to number 6 now, which is the way we're presently getting approved right now. There's some other minor money, but most of it's coming from LDEQ loan.
Which is the work we did before to make sure those loans
That's
were put
correct.
in place through the state of Louisiana. So it's nothing new. There's not money that we're taking from the public. This is money that we have in place for all of these projects, and I just want the public to feel comfortable with that. Thank you.
That's correct, thanks.
Hearing no further discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 13B is a resolution ratifying the appointment of Chester A. Fleming III as an Assistant City Attorney for the City of Kenner. I have a motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Hearing no, Councilman Segur, you have the floor.
Like our city attorney to please give some credentials for this young man. We had a
Absolutely.
discussion earlier, but young man.
Absolutely.
So if you can tell us more about him and the reason for the need for him.
Yes, so there was a vacancy that became available, or an opening in the city attorney's office with one of the assistant city attorneys resigning recently, and Mr. Fleming comes to us with years of experience. He's a very seasoned litigator. I said 3 decades. I think he got upset that I said that because it shows his age. But he's on recommendation from Ms. Foshi. I'm thrilled to have him join the legal department. I think we have a great team with myself and Ed Rapier and Eric Mund and Francine Weaker, and I'm just, Chip's just fitting in just fine. He has been splitting up his time prosecuting in mayor's court and also handling special projects, which is what he'll be doing. So we're thrilled to have him join the team. He is a very experienced attorney, and if you'd like to invite him to come up, you can, but we're asking for your approval. Thank you.
Chip, you want to come up and ad lib to these decades she talked about? I said you were a young man. She threw in the decades.
For many years, since she was 5 years old. So it's been, so she's now
we're
about to
talking
turn
decades.
39.
Okay, I got it.
And when she told me about this opportunity, one of the major reasons I jumped at it was because Deborah is one of the smartest, most honest, hardest working, and wittiest people I've ever known in my life. She's a very dear friend. And so the opportunity to work for her and with the mayor and Lee and Ed and Eric was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So I hope you all approve me as the new Assistant City Attorney, because it's a great honor. On an interim basis, it's been a tremendous experience. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I look forward to many years of service to the mayor and to you as well.
Well said.
Thank you.
Next, Councilman Klein.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Fleming, as you know, I've been knowing you for a long time. I think you're a diligent and hardworking lawyer. We had a lot of good past experiences together with you and your firm, and we look forward to you being the assistant and the city attorney. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Hearing no further discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 13C is a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 1108 Williams Boulevard in Kenner, Louisiana shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. I have a motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Klein. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 12,339, an ordinance approving an agreement with the firm of Digital Engineering and Imaging Incorporated for professional services relating to Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality Wastewater State Revolving Loan Administration Management in an amount not to exceed $420,000 for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Klein. Councilman Segur, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Either administration or Tom, would y'all give us a little heads up on what this project is, or what the need for this contract is?
Come on, there we go. This is for program management for the LDEQ loan and those projects that are funded by that loan. This firm has been involved in the past, and now the program management shifted over to another firm, and now it's back to where we're wanting to execute this contract with Digital. And I see you over there wanting to say something. But anyway, that's in short, that's what it is. It's program management to take care of this loan. They provide all the interface with DEQ and with the other consultants and the contractors, and have done it for many years in the past.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hoshi, I know you want to say something. I hope it's in response to the questions that we probably all were questioned about today.
I was going to talk about things Chip said about me.
Oh.
So, and the issue here, and I just want to make it really clear, Laney Rivera has been the engineer on this project for many, many, many years. So I love Digital. They're a great firm, but if Laney went to Timbuktu Engineering, this contract would go with her, because she has been the soldier who has carried this forward through all 5 DEQ loans up to this point, and now we're going into number 6, and I don't know that we could get through this project or have gotten anywhere near we are right now without Laney. So this contract with Digital is to allow us to continue to work with Laney, and also takes into account the fact that we're going into DEQ 6. So we've expanded the scope. We have, in addition to the additional funding for the underlying DEQ compliance order, we have the items that were brought up, Tom brought up earlier. The second issue that was brought up by a member of the public pertaining to the affidavits of contributions, those are documents, and I think legal probably should address that, but that affidavit or that document is attached to the final contract, is that correct? So that document is not available at this time. It'll be available once the contract is executed?
Once the contract is executed, yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, Mr. Segura?
I think we cleared that. The particular questions that I'm sure I know I received from a member of our audience who's here tonight was why and who and past problems, but those past problems had nothing to do with not only this engineering firm or particularly the person who's doing the work now. And the contribution requests will be provided when we do actually sign a contract.
It will be available after the contractor signs the contract and submits it to the city, yes.
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Councilman Reno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Foshee, so Laney was with what firm prior to Digital?
Laney was with GEC.
And GEC had this contract with the city prior to us, and to us awarding this contract to Digital.
Correct.
And the original contract with GEC, did they use all of the funding that we agreed to pay up to this point? or-
No, they did not.
Okay,
So that's funding is partially what's going to go into this, though this scope, again, is expanded to incorporate the new.
right, I get that. I
Duties,
just
but-
wanted to clarify for the public that
Yes.
there were monies left over
Yes.
from the previous contract,
Good point, yes.
and those monies are going to be used for part of this $420,000 contract, which this is an expanded contract because now we have more work to be done that wasn't part of the original contract.
That's correct.
Just wanted
Thank
to.
you. I should have clarified
Yeah.
that, thanks.
Okay, that's the only question I had. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The queue is clear.
Hearing no,
Councilwoman DeFrances.
And am I also to assume that any old problems that have not been addressed yet will also be covered? Am I correct in that assumption or not?
Engineering problems?
Well, engineering problems, but I'm looking a little bit ahead as well. Any problems that exist with that project, am I correct?
Their project management on this project. So again,
Okay,
we have
good.
different contractors deal with different elements, and she's overall project management, and yes,
That's
they will
why we
handle it.
brought up her name, exactly, so that she will also make sure
Absolutely.
that any other old problems that may exist
Correct.
will also be addressed.
Old problems, new problems, that's all Laney. She got it all.
Wanted to put that on the record.
Okay.
council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 12,340, an ordinance authorizing the purchase and installation of 2 automated license plate recognition cameras and licensing in the amount of $30,996 utilizing State of Louisiana contract number 4400011241 with LA Tech LLC for the Kenner Police Department. I have a motion by Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember Segur. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Oh, Councilman Klein, would you like to speak? That's okay.
All right. Cancel this? Okay. Thank you. These 2 license plate recognition cameras will be placed in District 4. That's my district. And the purpose of them is to, if a stolen car would pass by the camera, it would take a picture of it, and they would store it and then report it to the police department. So stolen cars that, we can't tell you the location because that's confidential, but what we can tell you is they're very effective. It's a useful tool for the policemen now that they can do a much better job. Also, if you pass by the camera and it takes a picture of your license plate, that might be entered in the crime information center, and it could be days or weeks later, they can apprehend somebody of interest or a suspect, and it solved several murders, not just stolen cars, but murders. And of course, in our subdivisions late at night, they would be very useful that if somebody from another area of town or another parish would come into our city and pass the crime camera and then do something that they're not supposed to be doing, that we have a better chance of apprehending those people. So I think it's a very useful tool for the policemen. Obviously, I support the policemen 100%. They in favor of this also. There's other cameras around, and they've been very effective. So I think it's a small cost for the city at $30,000 for 2 cameras to improve the police protection, even though we have the #1 police department in the state, that we certainly want to do as much as we can to increase the technology and to the services of the police department. So someone asked me, do you think that those cameras would violate anybody's civil rights? And my answer was simple. No. If you're traveling on a public street, you have no right to privacy. We're not going into anybody's car. We're not going into anybody's home. This is on a public street. And if you're a suspect or you have stolen a car, we have a better chance of apprehending those people, which I think all of the councilmen, the mayor's office, et cetera, are all in favor of good law enforcement and strict law enforcement. And this would help the law abiding peoples, and it would also help the police department. So I think it's all positives all the way around, no negatives. The $30,000 is a small cost to have a more effective instrument. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And I would be supporting this ordinance and ask my other council members to do the same.
Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15C is summary ordinance number 12,341. An ordinance approving amendment number 1 to the resident inspection agreement with Digital Engineering and Imaging Incorporated dated July 27, 2017 for the demolition of wastewater treatment plant number 2, which increases the not-to-exceed contract amount from $90,000 to $140,000. I have a motion by Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchis. Councilmember
Reno?
Thank you, Mr. President. Tom, this is an increase of approximately $50,000 on this contract. Can you tell me what is covered? I know it's an inspection agreement, but what additional work are they doing? Or was this something that needed to be done anyway, we just didn't include it in the original inspection agreement?
The main reason the amount's going up is that the contractor has elected to work a lot of overtime. When he works overtime, he is responsible for paying for the resident inspection. So as we go on, those amounts are deducted from his contract amount, but we still have to increase the contract amount for the resident inspector. So it's more or less a wash, but.
Yeah, so it's no additional cost to the city. The contract is actually paying for the inspection, but we have to increase the contract in order to be able to pay the vendor.
That's correct.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that for the public. Thank you.
Hearing no further discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15D is summary ordinance number 12,342. An ordinance ratifying an emergency purchase for an air conditioning system at Lincoln Manor Gym in the amount of $29,299 by Beacon Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Incorporated for the City of Kenner Department of Parks and Recreation. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15E is summary ordinance number 12,343. An ordinance approving an amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement between the City of Kenner and the Solution Corporation. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchis, second by Councilmember Carroll. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15F is a resolution approving amendment number 1 to the engineering agreement with IMC Consulting Engineers Incorporated dated March 18, 2016 for the wastewater treatment plant number 3 generator banking project, which extends the term of the agreement to March 18, 2020. I have a motion by Councilmember Klein, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15G is a resolution approving change order number 2, final, to the contract with Brotherhood Way General Contractors LLC dated June 16, 2017 regarding the Roosevelt Boulevard decorative landscape lighting Phase 1 for a net decrease of $3,240, resulting in a total contract amount of $123,842.50, and to accept the contract as complete for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Segur, seconded by Councilmember Carroll.
Councilman Segur, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just wanted to point out that this is the completion of the project that was started some months ago to light up the oak trees on Roosevelt Boulevard from Airline Highway down about 2.5, 3 blocks. We see this a lot around, our communities, City Park, the lighting of the oaks that they have there, even here in Kenner on Loyola. The oak trees are such a beautiful tree, but if they're just in the dark, they just don't come to life as well as they should. So Roosevelt has a very wide median, and with the trees lining it, it's at times a very nice corridor for people to take walks in that median in between these oaks. So I felt it would certainly be a much nicer ambiance to light them up and provide lighting for the residents, or whoever that wanted to just have a nice, casual, leisurely walk down the median in between these trees and have the lights to feel safer with. So this is the first phase. As I hope to get additional monies, we'll continue it and add more and take it down to West Metairie. Shortly, within the next, hopefully, week or so, we'll actually turn them on and get to enjoy it. So want everyone to understand that this is just for that purpose, and please go out and use it. Thank you.
Councilman Reyna.
Thank you, Mr. President. The funding for this project, did this come from District 2 funding, or was this in citywide capital?
District 2 funding.
I just wanted to clarify so that everybody knows, because each district councilman does spend money in their district for certain projects. So I just wanted to let the public know that this was, funding that came from that district councilman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd like to add this to this. This isn't about the lighting, which I think would be fantastic. I would like to thank Councilman Segura and also former Councilman Stagney, because right at that intersection of Fillmore, Roosevelt, we have finally gotten in the stoplight that will save many, many lives. There's a left turn signal, there's a go signal. So you just don't realize how much this has improved the people's confidence and going to that spot and to be able to feel safe about crossing Airline Highway with the number of traffic that comes to that point. So this isn't about the lighting, but it will enhance, the lighting will enhance, also illuminate the crossing for people and for people who, because there's a lot of foot traffic that cross Airline Highway right there. So I want to thank Councilman Segura again and former Councilman Stagney for their support on this. Took a little bit, but we finally got it in. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hearing no further discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance approving supplemental agreement number 1 to the agreement with the Design Engineering Incorporated for construction, engineering, and inspection related services for Chateau Boulevard resurfacing, state project number H.011-007.6, federal aid project number H011007, Kenner project number 2014-007-RB, with an increase of $28,322 for a total cost of $109,440 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16B is an ordinance approving an agreement with Digital Engineering and Imaging Incorporated for construction, engineering, and inspection-related services for Veterans Boulevard lighting, Airport to Loyola, state project number H.010973.6, federal aid project number H.010973, Kenner Public Works project number 2014-008-SL, in an amount not to exceed $110,038 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16C is an ordinance authorizing an additional $250,000 to be added to the use of Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office Contract 17-D-1201 with Lamarck Ford Incorporated, Crescent Ford Trucks, and Courtesy Ford to purchase vehicles for the Kenner Police Department. Item 17 is reports from the council and our special committees.
Councilman Segura.
Thank you. Thank you. Last week, we celebrated Mardi Gras, and throughout the day, you could hear a lot of comments from commentators saying that anywhere else in the country, it was just Tuesday, but here in New Orleans, it's Mardi Gras, which makes it unique. Today is Thursday anywhere else in the country, but here, it's unique because it's our council president's birthday. So I would like to take a moment to wish him happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. It's very, very nice. I appreciate that. The thoughts have been tremendous today, and it makes it nice. So thank you all. Thank you. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, or should I say birthday boy, congratulations. But I'd just like to also to remind everyone that on this Saturday from 5 until 8, I believe, the Arts Council, and maybe Mr. Ince can give a little bit more information on this, I would appreciate it, in the corridor, the area on Williams Boulevard. Mr. Ince, please.
For the Rivertown Art After Dark Series Prospect 4 exhibition. This is the first year we've been a part of it. We've had some really good attendance, even for some of the weather mishaps that we've had. We're really excited to extend this and hope this is a continued location every time that they have Prospect 4. It's a great continued event for the city of Kenner because it does have international exposure and it gives a really strong outlet for our local artists.
Thank you, sir. And, hopefully the weather cooperates. If you have an opportunity to pass by, I think it looks lovely there, and you have an opportunity to watch some of the art that will be presented there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilwoman DeFrances.
On the walls and all around, but they had dance, they had music. So it's a multi-artistic expression that we actually see at that night. Am I not correct, Mr. Ince?
Yes, absolutely. There is a component there, a performance component with the NOLA Dance Project, which
Right.
has gotten great reviews. I would like to add, too, that as a part of a grant that we just received from the Project for Public Spaces, which, as y'all remember, we just got done with the Sound Places grant program, which is a pilot program. We've gotten a lot of national exposure from that because of their platform. But as a part of that grant, we're getting 4 new temporary murals within the courtyard, as well as 1 permanent one, and some electrical box paintings within Rivertown as well.
I think people would enjoy it. I know I did when I attended, so I hope many will come out that night.
We're hoping to keep continuing it.
Thank you. Next up, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Item 18 is new business. We have none. Item 19 is unfinished business and motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Mr. Al Morella, if you'll state your name and address, please.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 46 years. First and foremost, I want to commend our fire department for the outstanding job they did in saving as much of that building as they could, considering the top portion of it was completely engulfed in flames when they arrived. So I want to commend them for a job well done. Second, I want to say concerning the building, I don't think it should have been allowed to languish as long as it had, without being put back into commerce. I don't think over the years the city had worked aggressively enough to put that building back into commerce. So I hope now, since this tragedy took place, that this city, this administration, will not only work aggressively with stabilizing it, rebuilding it, but also putting it back into commerce. Now, with that said, I want to direct this to Ms. Foshee. I want to respond to some comments that you made in here at the last council meeting when I ran out of time. Back to the fire department again, okay? You stated that Jefferson Parish always got what they needed, and I don't dispute that. But there was problems, Ms. Foshee, and I can cite 3 problems. Number one, there was deficiencies with their pension fund, which resulted in a lawsuit filed against Jefferson Parish by their union. Second, there was controversy in the appointment of what they call in Jefferson Parish the fire director. He's not a chief. His title is fire director. There was some controversy there. And then they had to show up at a few council meetings demanding the pay raise that was promised to them that they never got, even though it was a small pay raise that barely put them over $10 an hour, which is no livable wage for first responders. And I stated that at the podium. So you was parish attorney, and I'm sure you recall that at the time. If not, well, maybe I'm refreshing your memory. I think that's all I have. Oh, one more thing. I think what the city needs to do, yesterday at the parish council meeting, there was some legislation passed concerning short-term rentals in Jefferson Parish. I think what the city needs to do, I know I get complaints all the time of multiple families living in single-family homes back here, which is a violation of city ordinance. I think what we need to do is check around the city and see if there are anybody in these residential neighborhoods that are participating in short-term rentals back here. Because the legislation that was passed yesterday by the parish does not govern any of the 6 municipalities. So if that comes up here, we're going to have to pass our own rules and regulations like the parish did. So I'd appreciate it if y'all can look into this and see if any of this is going on in our city now in any of the neighborhoods. Anybody got any comments, any questions?
Councilman Segura.
Well, thank you for that comment. Last year at some point during our, I think it was the TNC taxi cab legislations, I made a comment at the council meeting that that would be the next project that I would undertake. After yesterday's vote, I spoke with our city attorney's office, and we are presently drafting the legislation, which will then be shared with everybody up here to eventually come to a vote so that we can address that. So shortly, you should see something from City of Kenner to address that.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Segura. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
Mr. Al, last time when we were talking, I was talking about this council, and this council gave the fire department everything that their fire chief asked for. I remember the things you're talking about in Jefferson Parish, and we had some interesting things going on there. But at this time last year, the budget hearing last year, the fire chief, the former fire chief, sat here and asked this council, and this council gave them everything he asked for. He just didn't ask for enough. So.
Any time left for Councilman Wilmot?
I think we're out of time, Mr. Morello. Thank you for your time.
Next meeting, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Greg Teff. Name and address, sir.
Name is Greg Taft. I live at 3720 West Loyola Drive. I wanted to ask what the status was on KTV's grants. Have we done anything to get grant money for KTV? Because we talked about we didn't even apply for grants that we were entitled to get. So I just wondering if we've pursued that and got that working in place.
May I respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Teff, I'm so glad that you brought that up. It means that somebody's actually listening when I'm talking. So sometimes I wonder if there's anyone out there. We separated the department of KTV from the IT department so they would be in a position to do that. That transition has not yet occurred. When that conversation was had, it was to get permission from this council to do so. I believe, Mr. CFO, the next council meeting, we will have that transition, which is basically we have to separate out the budget. It will be read into summary the next one. So the meeting after that, it will be voted on, and the meeting after that, those people are going to start applying for grants.
Okay, because I think we need to move that in order to get people into more of what's going on in the city, not just council meetings.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And then the last thing I want to bring up, I brought this up last time, and I'll bring it up again, is these vehicle wraps. I hate them. And the other day, I saw one, not anybody here in Kenner, is for the sheriff, which is Jefferson Parish, but still, a vehicle wrap is a vehicle wrap, and I don't like them. And they really don't look good in the city. I mean, and a lot of people has expressed that comment that vehicle wraps just don't look good. The same way as that the vehicle wrap shouldn't be allowed on City Hall property during a meeting. I don't think you should be allowed to be able to have a vehicle wrap parked in this parking lot when there's a council meeting going on, because to me, that's a political advertising. But anyway, I'm gonna bring it up again. I wish y'all would look at that and figure out a way to fix that law so that we don't have that kind of stuff here in Kenner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teff. And there's nobody else from the audience wishing to speak. Do I have a motion? Move, second. Motion, move and second. Motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you.